Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through, well, stacks of sources, really, articles, notes, you name it, to pull out the key insights for you.
Giving you that shortcut to being well-informed.
Exactly, hopefully with a few surprises along the way. And today, we're diving into something, well, it's pretty unique.
Yeah, it really is. We're looking at a set of loose visions, is how they're described. Predictions from a clairvoyant, actually, from a YouTube channel.
Right. So our job today is to unpack these predictions, see what they might, suggest or imply about where things are headed.
It definitely pushes us outside the usual ways of thinking about information, doesn't it?
It certainly does. So where does this particular source start? It mentioned something right off the bat that caught my eye, an early validation, they call it.
Ah, yes, the fatwa vision.
That's the one. The clairvoyant apparently foresaw something about a fatwa. And for anyone listening who isn't sure, a fatwa is basically a ruling, an opinion, from a high-ranking Muslim scholar.
And the specific claim here, according to the source material, is pretty startling. It says the Grand Ayatollah of Iran, Makarem Sarazi, issued one calling for the murder of President Trump and Israeli PM Netanyahu.
Calling them enemies of God, specifically.
Exactly. And the source really hammers this point. The prediction supposedly came true, and the clairvoyant apparently didn't even know the word fatwa beforehand.
Which is presented as, proof that these visions can reveal things beyond normal logic.
Right. It sets a very particular tone, suggesting we should maybe take the upcoming predictions seriously, even if they seem unconventional.
Okay. So, after setting that stage, where do the visions go next? Looks like some major geopolitical shifts are predicted, things that, frankly, echo some current tensions.
Definitely. The first big one is this idea of a second front of World War III.
Wow. All right.
A port city in the Middle East is predicted to be attacked. It's described as a surprise attack, maybe at night.
Any specific location mentioned?
The source speculates. Could be Iran, but also mentions Yemen or maybe other nations. It's not pinned down entirely.
Okay. And it also claims the U.S. and Israel are bracing for this, preparing for it.
That's what the source asserts. Yes, actively preparing. And here's a crucial link the source makes.
This connects to a previous prediction.
Exactly. It connects this potential port attack to an earlier prediction about a 12-day war. If this new attack happens, it's supposed to signal the start of that second worst front of World War III.
Okay, but what does World War III actually mean in this context? It sounds different from historical world wars.
It does. The prediction isn't for, an immediate global battlefield. It's described more as a period where various local conflicts just appear and disappear, a state of flux.
Unstable.
Very. And happening alongside all this is predicted financial deregulation, so a loosening of economic rules, which could cause, a lot of instability, a serious crisis.
It definitely taps into anxieties about regional conflicts escalating and the global order feeling strained, doesn't it?
It really does. And those geopolitical tremors, while they often go hand in hand with economic ones, the source pivots pretty quickly to the economy, predicting a major blow to the dollar.
Not just market jitters, but something bigger, more strategic.
Seems like it. And China is placed right at the center of this.
Okay, what's China predicted to do?
The vision is that China will firmly reject something tied to the U.S. This action dramatically escalates tensions. Specifically, China starts preparing to completely refuse dollar settlements for trade.
And there's a reason given for this.
Yeah.
A strategy.
Yeah, the source lays out a kind of a rationale.
Yeah.
China supposedly presents this move as a direct response to perceived instability in Trump's trade policies. The threats, the changing deadlines, tariffs.
So using that perceived instability as leverage.
Exactly. To convince other countries, look, let's just trade in our own currencies. Forget the dollar. It's apparently a two-step plan.
2 steps. Okay, what are they?
First, push for more trade in local currencies, cutting the dollar out of the loop, less demand for dollars globally.
Right.
Then, step 2, potentially create an Asian digital currency. Could be just China, could be multiple countries together. But the goal is clear. Directly compete with the dollar, undermine its dominance.
And the timing of this prediction.
The source highlights that this comes when the dollar is seen as being at its weakest point in decades, maybe 50 years, it says.
Which connects back to...
Yeah.
Wasn't there a prediction about a crash?
Yes. The source links these actions by China against the dollar as a primary cause for a predicted sudden crash of Western countries. It's painting a picture of deliberate economic warfare, essentially.
It's interesting how these unconventional predictions sometimes mirror discussions happening in mainstream finance about de-dollarization.
It is. It taps into those existing undercurrents of anxiety about shifting economic power.
Okay, so from the global economy, the focus then narrows down to Europe, with some pretty dramatic predictions for the EU.
Very dramatic. This concept of a two-speed European Union really stands out.
Two speeds, how does that work?
Well, the trigger, according to the source, is the EU suddenly freezing funds for Poland again. Remember, they were unfrozen not that long ago.
Right?
This freeze supposedly kicks off the development of these two EUs, an EUA and EUB.
So like an inner core and an outer ring.
Pretty much. Even though it might still look like one entity on paper, the richer central countries effectively start to disown the less wealthy ones, isolate them politically.
And does the source name names? Which countries end up in EB?
It does. It lists Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia as becoming these sort of second category states, politically sidelined despite treaties.
Wow, this is a lot of Eastern and Central Europe.
It is. And a key tactic mentioned in creating this division is the vanishing of Schengen freedom. Free movement, gone.
Not just temporary border checks, but permanently gone.
That's the claim. Permanent. Which would obviously create huge friction, make travel and trade much harder, like going back decades.
Again, it's striking how this vision, even from a clairvoyant, touches on real, existing debates within the EU about money, rules, and how integrated different members truly are.
It really does tap into those fault lines.
Okay, so within that fractured European picture, the source then zooms in specifically on Poland and introduces a figure named Naraki.
Yes. And his predicted presidency sounds, well, pretty radical.
How so?
He's predicted to quickly announce decrees, these are like executive actions that have the force of law, bypassing the normal parliament process.
Okay.
And these decrees are supposedly already written not by him, and their release will be a total surprise to the media and other politicians. It's framed as an urgent move to stop what the current government is doing.
So a very activist president,
Yeah.
right from the start.
Extremely active, pursuing a plan that was apparently agreed on even before he ran for office. The prediction says he'll initially overshadow the current PM, Tusk, and this whole situation likely leads to the collapse of the current government.
A major political upheaval then. And this ties back to the economy too, doesn't it? Inflation.
Yes, the source predicts inflation will spike rapidly, specifically by the end of summer, and alongside that, there will be talk of deregulation of the economy.
And the link to the dollar problems we discussed earlier.
The source explicitly suggests that link, that the rising inflation and the deregulation talk are connected to the U.S. dollar issues, maybe forcing financial authorities to hike interest rates in response.
It paints a picture of interconnected crises, political, economic.
Exactly. And then there's one more very specific Poland-related prediction, the border with Germany.
Ah, yes. What about it?
It's predicted to revert to how it was before Schengen. Germany ramps up control significantly on the Polish side. Crossing the border feels like it did before Poland joined the EU.
So really dialing back that integration.
Seems like it, a physical manifestation of that fragmentation idea.
Okay, beyond these big geopolitical and economic themes, the source also includes some really unusual specific event predictions, almost like snapshots of strange occurrences.
Yeah, these are quite distinct, harder to categorize.
Let's run through them. There were two quite localized ones first.
Right. First, the prediction of an unexpected death. A great leader, or just a very important person in some country, dies suddenly, quickly, and this plunges the whole nation into mourning.
Just out of the blue, basically.
And that's the description, yeah. And then second, something in the financial markets. A sudden shock.
But didn't we already talk about a crash?
We did. The source makes a point of saying this is different. It's a shock, not the deeper crash. It apparently calms down quickly, but it's still a noticeable, significant jolt to the system.
Okay. A leader's death, a market shock. What else? There was something about Venice.
Yes, a really specific kind of unsettling vision for Venice, something falling or a shock, possibly an earthquake, though the source notes an earthquake would obviously affect a wider area.
Vague but ominous. And then the most mysterious one, the plane.
Ah, yes. The disappearance of a large passenger plane. Described as a continental flight, lots of people on board, it just vanishes from radar.
Any other details given?
A couple of curious ones. It might be associated with the letter D and with white and blue colors.
White and blue. Like an airline's livery, maybe?
Possibly. And the source adds something interesting. Rumors might spread that it was shot down, but the clairvoyant claims those rumors would be false.
So, not shot down. What happens to it then?
The prediction is it will likely fall into water, just
Yeah.
disappear into the water. The specificity is quite striking, isn't
It
it?
really is,
Mhm.
especially for something out there. Okay, so to wrap all these predictions up, the source gives a kind of roadmap for the future, a list of safe places
Yeah, quite unique. A list of places seen as safe in the world after 2027.
to 2027. Okay, where should we all be heading, according to this?
Well, South America is listed as fully safe. Same for Latin America and Mexico. Australia is also on the safe list.
What about Africa?
Almost all of Africa is described as safe.
And Europe, given the fragmentation predicted earlier?
Some parts are still seen as safe. Switzerland, Austria, parts of Spain, Portugal, and Italy.
Interesting. Any caveats?
A couple. The UK and France are mentioned they might have internal unrest, but are still considered generally safe. And Poland. Poland is described as stripped bare, but perhaps safe.
Stripped bare. That sounds harsh.
It does. It underlines that perceived level of detail in the visions, sketching out this future geography of safety and instability.
It's quite a journey we've taken, exploring all these predictions from one quite unusual source. The sheer volume, the level of detail sometimes. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And I think, regardless of whether you believe in clairvoyance or not, laying out these visions makes you think. What anxieties are they tapping into? Economic fears, political shifts, global tensions?
Exactly. You start to wonder if there are underlying patterns,
Yeah.
fears or possibilities that resonate, even if the source is unconventional.
And maybe that's the value here. In a world just flooded with information, how do we make sense of it all? How do we spot potential patterns or futures?
And perhaps there's something to be gained by looking at even the most unconventional takes on what might be coming down the road.
A final thought to chew on, perhaps.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.